Hello and welcome. Recently I've been spending a lot of time working on my new PvE Zeds map, and because it's got quite a long time to go before it is actually fully finished and ready to be released, I decided to spend a bit of time today explaining one of the core mechanics that I've developed specifically for that map, but which also has very many potential applications in other adventure, survival, PvE, and PvP maps. So the fundamental concept that we're dealing with today is that a fence surrounded by transparent blocks will not connect to those blocks, but if we replace a transparent block with an opaque block, not only does the fence connect to the opaque block, but it also changes the black outline that you see there, which is going to represent its collision box. And that also affects items, and because a fence is actually 1.5 blocks tall, to prevent jumping over them, it also means that items cannot flow past, but items can flow past areas of the fence that are by a transparent block. So if we find a transparent block that allows water to flow over and does not allow items through, but allows items to reach our fence, we can detect items while they're flowing and then do something else with them. For example, we have water below this fence, which will transfer items to this pressure plate. So if we were to throw some items, for example some gold nuggets on this side, even if they hit this corner of this fence, they'll still be blocked. But if we throw items on the other side, they will flow down, except for that one that got stuck up there. They will flow down, past our fence, down, and to our pressure plate down here. And what that means is that if we replace this sign, which is holding back our water here, with a pressure plate, that we can actually detect when items flow downward. So now, if we were to throw a couple of these down, we can see that it flows past our pressure plate, activating it along the way, and then afterward we can either return the items to the player, or we can destroy them with a cactus. And so, we can get on to the example now. Now, this example is not the exact same use that I've put the system through for my PvZeds map, but it is a very good example to use for this video, and the idea is that we have a player-defined timer, where for every item that we place in this dispenser, such as a golden nugget, we get approximately 2 seconds added to the clock. So if we were to step on this pad here, when we're ready and we're oriented so that we don't have to waste time by spinning around and orienting ourselves due to lag, then we can get ready to accomplish the timed puzzle that the creator has set out for us. So we step off, it shoots the item out, and once that hits the pad, the door opens for approximately 2 seconds before closing. And then if we were to do that again with about 3 nuggets, we should get about 6 seconds worth of time on the clock. So we step off, and it'll activate. And now the idea is that you can make your own sort of furnaces with custom fuel. For example, you can make a furnace that only works with, it'll work with any item, but the idea is that you'll have a plentiful supply of, for example, glowstone, and then the players would deem that item maybe useless, and that would be your fuel. So you can create sort of a constant power source that needs to be supplied in order to keep systems up and running, similar to how I used power conduits in my PvP Zeds map. And you can change how long each item lasts by changing the redstone up and adding some repeaters and that sort of thing along the way, but by default it's pretty much about 2 seconds. And before we get on to the redstone in earnest, I want to first show a way of sort of hiding the redstone that we have coming out of our pressure pad here, because the idea is that the pressure pad needs to have its redstone nearby and not coming out of the fence itself, because it can't even do that. If I were to put some redstone down here, it won't actually activate it. You see, it's completely inert. However, by using a sticky piston next to it, we can activate the sticky piston, which pushes this opaque block and cuts off the power that's being provided by this either torch or lever, that sort of thing, by putting it at an angle like this. So if we were to fill in this hole with any opaque block, we will not be able to provide power that way, and it'll shut off. So if we press this again, we can see that the power is off as long as it's doing that. And now we can get on to the full redstone. Alright, so before we get into the full bit of redstone here, I want to say that I will upload this map and put the link in the description, so if you don't want to listen to me talk about the redstone, you can check it out yourself. So with that said, I'll take you through the steps that this whole system goes through. So first, our dispenser fires an item into this area here to prevent any problems with momentum causing items to land on the fence itself and not fall through, so that the players can collect everything that is used in the process. And then it lands in the water, which takes it directly into our pressure plate here. Then it falls through into our other water channel and is returned to the player. Meanwhile, power from this pressure pad is going up and into our dispenser, activating it again, setting off the whole process in a loop until the dispenser is out of items, because once it's out of items, it won't be pressing this pressure pad anymore, and that won't be activating the dispenser again. And then we are sending that power that is generating by the detector into these series of sort of lengthener type things. And the idea is that we have a one-way street here of redstone where we have two repeaters. This one is set to max, and all subsequent repeaters on this line are set to max, and this one is just default only to keep it one way, to make sure that the power only travels that way and not in a constant loop. And then each of these blocks, which is powered by the repeater, all set to max, are transmitting power back to our main line, and you need just enough of these to get about 2 seconds in this current setup worth of power into our main line, which is used to power whatever systems you need. Because during the downtime between firing an item and the item activating this pressure pad, we won't actually have any power coming from the pressure pad, and so we need to compensate that by using our existing power multiple times over. However, once you get to the end, you hit a little snag, and that is that this, you can see, is at 3 blocks away, 3 redstone dust pieces, and that power will be always the same regardless, because I have a block here and here. And you can see that this repeater is powering this block and this repeater is powering this block, but they're both powering to the same level. So you can see that 3 spaces of redstone is required to power this from this distance. But if we were to replace it with this bit of redstone instead of a block here, you can see that now this bit of power will power our door down below by 4 spaces away, and this block will power it by 3 spaces away. And an oddity to avoid with that is if we try to power it now, you can hear that we will get a bit of a power fluctuation when the door opens. So if you can have your volume up, you'll hear that. There we go. Keeps doing it. And that is caused by the power not being equivalent throughout the whole process at the end here. So you just want to make sure that you either have your end repeater or any one-way street bit of redstone, so that at the last stretch here the power remains constant at all times. And that's pretty much all you need to do to solve that problem. And also you may need to expand the length of this if you want to expand the length of each individual item. And there are plenty of ways to expand the length. You don't exactly have to do it like I have, but it does work quite well. And also, another thing to note is that from your input, which is down here, we have our pressure plate. You can just use a button, and that serves its purpose quite well. You don't need to worry about a lot of complicated redstone stuff, but right now I'm using a pressure plate, and I only wanted to activate it once and not to constantly be sending power to our dispenser and maybe causing some issues which I may not have foreseen. So I have the power coming into this block here, which is inverting it because we only want the power to activate whenever we're not on the dispenser. Whenever we're not on the pressure plate, and only once. So that is powering this block here, which is sort of a pulse shortener type thing, and what it's doing is making sure that we only send a small pulse and only once whenever we get off the pressure plate instead of always while we're off the pressure plate. So what's happening with this is, as long as this block is powered by the pressure plate being off, this torch will be off. And as a result, this torch will be, yes, it will be off. And as a result, this redstone here will be on, meaning that this torch will be, or this redstone will be off, meaning this torch will be on, and that will be providing power. But we want to turn the torch off immediately afterward because we don't want it to constantly be sending power. So we throw a repeater down in the middle of them to shut off the power, and we need that maxed out. And then you'll notice that there was a bit of a delay from the time that the first item was dispensed from when the door opened, but if you wanted that to be instant, all you have to do is take the power from your input and add it to your dispenser area here. And that will start it up instantly, but you will need to change your timing a bit because otherwise it won't be as uniform. So if we tried it out now, there would be a slight break in the whole process. So if we activate it now, it opens, and again, and that's a bit of a problem. And you'll also notice that the power does come on even if we don't have any items in the dispenser and when we step off. But only for a moment, which doesn't really affect puzzles that much if it's a really big puzzle that will require a lot of time. So just keep that in mind. Otherwise, that's about it for the redstone. Again, the map is in the description if you want to look at it yourself, but that's about it, and I'll see you next time.